Moana, Tell with Moana this week. It's on Māori television, but I don't know if these are all going on Māori television or if they're doing some dedicated sort of online ones as well. So we've got a segment here that goes for 4 minutes talking about the RSB. They've done a little bit of a setup on it, and this is just where I'm choosing to pick up from because this is kind of when they get into the meaty stuff.
Imagine what human beings could do if they were free to do it for themselves without the politics and bureaucracy. And that's
It's funny how they need like taking borders, and like they never kind of consider that with issues that they think are woke. You know, we have to have lots of regulations around that. Any of those, no, those don't count. When we say freedom, we mean the freedoms that we agree with, not those other freedoms. They need to be squashed.
That's why the government that governs best is the government that governs less.
You didn't quite nail that, David. Why don't we give?
He didn't stick the landing, did he?
Didn't stick. We'll give you one more chance, Davey boy. Try and stick the landing this time.
For themselves without the politics and bureaucracy. And that's why the government that governs best is the government that governs less.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, if we think about many of the examples of when regulation was taken away,
Yes.
we see lots of consequences.
Yes.
Leaky buildings, right? Which we're still...
It's so funny. It's exactly what we talked about last night, like the hairdressers thing. So what's going to happen? So there'll be some hairdressers out there that will stop cleaning their stuff as well because they now don't have to. They're not going to get checked up on it. The places that there are going to be some hairdressers and barbers that are either less hygienic or if they have a busy Friday and can't kind of get around to being as hygienic as they should be, they won't worry about it because there's no repercussions. It's exactly what happens when you get rid of regulations.
Consequences. Leaky buildings, right? Which we're still dealing with in the schools and a whole pile of other places. Deaths in the forestry sector, mainly Māori deaths from not having proper health safety regulations there. Pike River, similar, not having inspections of mines, etc. Issues in the aged care homes. The finance company collapses because the finance companies could do what...
This sounds like a lovely future, doesn't it? With no regulation. Bring it on!
If they liked, and lots of people lost their pensions, funds and so on. And so we've seen what light-handed regulation actually means in practical terms. This government is talking in this mega sense about making that the norm.
But is there a middle ground that could be reached?
The problem is that ACT doesn't want a middle ground. ACT wants the end of the spectrum.
And this is exactly what we talked about last night, right? We were talking about, like we're talking about the health system. Can't we just can we get a bipartisan, sort of centrist, not centrist government, but like a middle part that we agree to in a bipartisan way? Yeah, and when you get in, you can stuff around the 10% around the edges, but you get one party like ACT who are like, it's my way or the highway. We've already heard from Chippy when he came on here that this government's idea of bipartisan is agree with us, and it can never happen. So even if one was going to be, what's the word? Generous, and say, well, let's come to an agreement together. ACT's position is, no, we want it this way. And that's what we're seeing.
This is ACT's fourth attempt to pass a bill knocked back in 2007, 2011 and 2021.
So the only way they're getting it into Parliament this time is through the back door of the coalition agreement, where National agreed to allow this not just to be introduced, but the legislation to be passed.
How come it failed back then?
When they've tried to pass this before, there's been a huge resistance, even from some of their fellow travellers. And so submissions to select committees were overwhelmingly opposed to these, but so were positions taken by the likes of the Treasury. I understand in this regulatory standards bill at present, there are quite a lot of people from the business community who don't support it either.
The majority of the 23,000 submissions on last year's consultation document weren't read by the Ministry of Regulation before proposals on next steps were taken to Cabinet. Of those that were read, it was revealed that only 0.33% supported the bill.
Think about that, whānau. 0.33%. So if there's 23,000, what would that be? 10% would be 2,300. So 1% would be 230. So a third of that would be 80. So of the 23,000, there were 80 that supported it. That would be 0.33%.
It's great to see that percentage put up over an image of at least 44 people.
Yeah. And I guess this would be also a time, and I'm sure we'll put it up as we go through, and I'm sure Kiwi Skirt will as well, of reminding everybody to do a submission. I'm certainly going to do one. There's been some of these submissions this year that I have done, some that I haven't done, but I'll definitely be doing one on this, and I think everybody should. Oh, I've been corrected. Sorry, it's not 80, it's 86, says Kiwi B. I'm sorry for my live math working count.
Less than 0.5%.
The proposed bill would measure any new policy or regulations against a set of core principles. What impact will that have on Te Tiriti and on Māori influence?
Well, no surprise that amongst the principles that ACT has proposed, Te Tiriti does not appear.
Surprised.
Which means that it's not amongst the main criteria that would have to be considered when bringing a new regulation into play. But also, it proposes setting up a board to which those who don't like regulations could complain that those regulations are not consistent with ACT-style principles that are in the ACT. And so Māori are not only invisible in the criteria in those principles, but anything that is done in favour of Māori risks being brought to this board. And of course the board would be appointed by the Minister, who currently is David Seymour, and who can also issue guidelines about what does or doesn't come into the mix.
And of course, the very first person that will be appointed will be Richard Prebble. In fact, Rawiri this week was pretty clear that he believes he's left the Waitangi Tribunal so he can be appointed to this board, which also fills me with fear of the done deal or not Chewie. We hear New Zealand First was going to push back against some things. And look, honestly, if 1/3 of 1% of the people who submitted supported it last time, I suspect it'll be smaller, as hard as that sounds this time, because there does seem to be more of a fire this time around amongst the opponents to it. And if business isn't supporting it, and if the people aren't supporting it, and if Winston is kind of on it, if this does go through, this is not democracy. Whatever these fuckers say, and whatever they want to sell, and whatever they want to say about we have a mandate, this would be the opposite of democracy. Democracy doesn't mean you win enough seats and do whatever you want against the flow or the opinion of society. There can always be some things, 30-70, 60-40, but if it's less than 1% to more than 99% and you guys choose to do it,
That's not
God help you all. God help you all. That's all I can say. You think you've seen trouble with protests and stuff in the first 18 months? God help you all.